What I see happening now is two sides fighting over what is right. Our society has fallen for this trap where we fall for personal stories. I mean, you got two sides. You've got pro-lifers and you've got pro-choicers. And what happens between the two is we each have to have the most compelling stories than the other side. If one side is able to come up with a more compelling personal story than the other side, then that side is able to win the argument. And there are many who claim pro-choice who have stories that really move you. And these stories at times, they seem to make sense. I mean, maybe it's to please a boyfriend, or to pursue an education, or financial solvency, or career, or maybe it's just freedom from the inconvenience of having to raise a child in that busy season of life. Whatever it is, there is a compelling story and there is always a way to justify it. And then there are many who are pro-life who stand at abortion clinics and scream, abortion stops a beating heart, and abortion is murder. And guys, that's all truth. But are you really going to reason with someone who has their mind made up about this topic? Is this really gonna help you win the argument? Here's the issue with the mindset of both sides. If all we are about is the personal and the compelling story, this becomes a problem. Christians, I need you to listen to me. It has to be more than that. We have to be people of this book. We are people of the gospel. It's not about our personal stories. Our personal stories have very little relevance. I mean, why do we need a story when we have his story? Guys, Jesus' story is the only story that matters. Right now, I don't see this story being told. So what do we do with this? Well, the first thing we do is we stop trying to convince people who are pro-choice to become pro-life. That isn't happening. Their mind is made up. Our compelling stories aren't going to work. Our opinions are not going to work. Beating people over the head with your conservative views are not going to work. Picketing and screaming at people out in front of abortion clinics is not going to work. This is why we must have a biblical and theological understanding and approach to the way that we address this issue with the culture at large. Bottom line is this: abortion is spiritual warfare. And you don't win spiritual warfare with personal stories. I mean, can you imagine standing in front of Satan saying, hey, get away from me, devil? I have a real compelling story. I mean, guys, if this is the way you plan on fighting, you will lose every single time. You have to understand that people who are this flippant about murdering babies are under demonic influence. People are just pawns being used. They are blind to what is really happening here. So what is our message to culture? What's the gospel? It's always been the gospel, and it will always be the gospel. There's no other way to fight this war. Listen, guys, Jesus, through his incarnation, vindicates, validates, and verifies the sanctity of human life at every single point, from conception to natural death. How? He could have come to this world in any way, shape, form, fashion that he chose, and God chose conception in every step of the birth process, thus validating, verifying the sanctity of human life while it's still in the womb, all the way to the end of life, where God the Son suffered and experienced death, thus validating and sanctifying even that part of our experience. Guys, that's the story. Not our stories, it's Jesus' story. This is how we combat the idea of abortion. The Bible treats the unborn in the same way it treats babies that have been born. To be made in the image of God means that the aim of God in making us in the womb is that we might project his image. We exist for that reason and only that reason. So for my pro-choicers out there, listen to me. We are images of divine reality. To attack a human being in the womb and kill him or her is an assault. It's an assault on God. God made the child, not you. God is weaving a unique image of his divine glory. Psalm 139:13 says, God made us and knit us together in our mother's womb. Killing an unborn child is an attack on God's glory and is treason against the ruler of the universe. It's that serious. So fundamentally and most importantly, abortion is about God because children are made by God in the image of God for the glory of God, period. It's not about your story or your feelings, and that's the end of the story.